I was recently reminded about the unusual terminology that was used by the early congregational churches of New England, like our own, when they were established. They did not think of themselves or speak of themselves as founded in 1624 or founded in 1636 or whatever. No. They used the unusual word gathered instead. Gathered in 1624 or gathered in 1636 or whatever the year. And the reason given is that the notion was akin to being gathered into the sheepfold and into the presence of the Good Shepherd. Like a shepherd kept his sheep gathered. Now, when I was reminded about this, I do have to confess that I went out and checked our own sign out front here. And at some point, it may need editing. As you all well know, I'm sure, our church sign reads, founded in 1722, making us, of course, 290 years old, closing in on our tercentennial. It's true, isn't it, that when we come together for worship on any given Sunday morning, or any other occasion for that matter, a wedding or a funeral, memorial service, or our holiday services, we are gathered. We are the gathered flock of the Good Shepherd, Jesus Christ. This concept of Jesus as the Good Shepherd is largely based on one of the most familiar and most cherished of all biblical passages, the 23rd Psalm, with its poignant words, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," so forth. It is the most important, most comforting, most strengthening, reassuring metaphor that we have in all of the Hebrew Scriptures. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So it's entirely understandable that the author of the Gospel of John, an early Christian theologian was he, that he should adopt this idea of the shepherd, the Good Shepherd, as one of the 7 I am statements of Christ in his gospel. In fact, if you look back to a few verses preceding today, a second of those I am statements occurs, one closely connected with the concept of the Good Shepherd itself. Jesus there says, I am the gate of the sheepfold. Now, sheepfolds, of course, are enclosures, which those nomadic shepherds of biblical times often sought out at dusk for the safety of their flocks from predators, especially wolves. Of necessity, the enclosure would have an opening for access and the egress of the sheep, but seldom had a gate constructed across the opening. According to my reading, it was the shepherd who functioned as the gate. That after his flock had entered the sheepfold and as night would fall, the shepherd laid across the opening through the night, so no restless sheep could wander out and no predator could enter in. Thus came the concept of the shepherd laying down, perhaps even risking his own well-being, for the sake of the safety of his flock. Consequently, we have the statement in today's verses that the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. It's not just a metaphorical statement. It was the reality. Now, in the course of my month ago or so initial reflection on these verses of the Good Shepherd, I had come to my mind for some reason that old 18th century child's bedtime prayer. Did you notice the sermon title? That old prayer that I recited often, and I suspect many of you did during the evening as well, even though none of us was around when it originated, I trust. You know it. Feel free to recite it along. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. I'm not sure how many families still use these 18th century words in the 21st century. In fact, I would be remiss if I didn't note that the prayer has been edited in more recent years. Wikipedia listed no less than a dozen modifications, many of which go this way. Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. Guard me, Jesus, or the angels, through the night, and wake me to the morning light. Notably absent in most of these rather contemporary rewrites is the dying phraseology, which I suspect we can understand. After all, it's a prayer intended for little children who might be anxious or fearful about death and separation, parents or siblings or loved ones or friends or pets for that matter. But the concept of and indeed, I would say, death can be a source of anxiety as well for adults alike. But the concept of the Lord watching over us, protecting and keeping us safe in the fullness of our bodies and souls, is again very close to that image which our verses from John's Gospel present of the Lord as the Good Shepherd. In another familiar psalm, 121st, it's written, "The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand, so the sun shall not strike you by day or the moon by night." In Romans 8, we read that nothing shall separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. Nothing, not life nor death, on and on. So with different expressions, this scriptural principle is consistent and clear that the Lord, in his immeasurable love for us, is our keeper, our protector, our guardian, ultimately our good shepherd, night and day. The gospel doesn't go so far as to suggest that God never sleeps. But indeed, it would seem that way, wouldn't it? As the Good Shepherd, the Lord watches us night and day and willingly laid down his life for his sheep. The writers of the Gospels realized by the time they wrote the Gospels the truth because Jesus had indeed already laid down his life, even through death on the cross. Jesus says at another time, "Greater love hath no one than this, that he would lay down his life for his friends," like the Good Shepherd. So, whether we are gathered here in the sheepfold or under the covers of our own beds by night, the Good Shepherd is with us. Whether male or female, elder or child, free or indebted, wealthy or poor, the Good Shepherd knows us and is with us. When anxious or calm, in bad times or good, in seed time or harvest, through flood or drought, whenever and however we are, the Good Shepherd is with us. Of that we can be certain, and in that we can place our trust.